Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk to you about how you can legally sleep in your car or van in Australia. It's a pretty simple concept. You just sleep in your car in public, but you can get in trouble if you're doing it the wrong way. If you're new to van life, or say you've been doing it for a while and you just don't know what the rules are, I'll go over everything and hopefully you'll gain a better understanding of what you can and can't do and where you can and can't sleep. How do you legally sleep in a van in Australia? Good question. The first place to start is to know your rights, and know your rights in every state. Queensland rules are different from New South Wales rules are different from Northern Territory, WA, etc. There's no nationwide federal law that says that it's illegal to sleep in your car in Australia. In Queensland and the Northern Territory, sleeping in your car outside of a designated campground is strictly prohibited. You're not allowed to do it. There's a reason that Queensland is called the nanny state, and this is just another one of those reasons. In New South Wales and the ACT, it is perfectly legal to sleep in your car or van. And then in every other state, in Victoria, South Australia, Tasmania, and WA, it's also technically legal to sleep in your car or van. Some local councils have attempted to introduce bylaws in states where it is legal to sleep in your car or van. But basically what that means is it gives them the right to fine you if you're found to be sleeping in an area where there's a bylaw in place. As a general rule, this usually occurs in the more touristy places, such as Byron Bay, as Port Stephens, or Bondi Beach is another one. If there is a sign in the parking lot that says no camping, usually that means that there's a bylaw in place within that area. Some places will try and trick you by installing signs in the park rather than on the side of the road or in the car park. Usually that sign's referring to no camping in the park, not no camping in the car park. A park is a park. A car park is a car park. A car park is obviously not a park, and a park is obviously not a car park, okay? In New South Wales, for example, if you are parked legally in a place where you are allowed to park, you're also allowed to sleep in the car where your car is legally parked. That's unless there's a local bylaw that says that you can't sleep in a car where your car is legally parked on the street. For the sign to be relevant, there has to be a sign next to the car park that says no sleeping, no camping in vehicles, etc. in this car park. Confusing, but in many cases, if you encounter that, it might just be easier just to duck around the corner somewhere, just stealth camping. In addition to that, some places will put up signs and then not enforce them. So the sign is an inactive deterrent. These are places like, say, the Central Coast in New South Wales. They won't actually employ somebody within the hours of overnight, so say 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. There might not actually be anybody working there to enforce the bylaws for overnight parking within that area. Some places where there's a sign that will deter you from sleeping in your car, we've actually stayed for many months. Newcastle is a great example of that. A couple of years ago, we spent the summer in Newcastle for about 3 months. We parked at the beach in front of a sign that says no camping in your car, and nobody enforced it. In fact, we were there with maybe 20 other vans all sleeping on the same street. Beachfront views. It was fantastic. Newcastle, I love you. Thank you for being such a cool, welcoming place. Look up the local council's website and look up the terms rough sleeping, roughing, overnight, or illegal camping. Those are the 4 terms that most councils use to talk about people sleeping in the car. If you look up, can I sleep in a car in this area, nothing will come up. I don't know why they don't do that. That's obviously the thing that people are looking up. Fines. What can you expect? What's the fine amount? That's another hard question to answer because it depends on the local council. They're the ones who create the rules within the local government areas, and so it's up to them to create the fine amount as well. To give you one example, in Queensland, in the Gold Coast, we actually were spoken to by a council ranger once a couple of years ago now. They gave us a warning, they were nice about it, but they said if they were to catch us again that we would each be issued a fine of $660 per person. That's obviously a lot of money. So what we like to do is When we're staying on the Gold Coast, it's a pro tip for you guys who are also staying on the Gold Coast. If you want to avoid a fine, every night go down to New South Wales, northern New South Wales, where it's perfectly legal to sleep in your car anywhere as long as you're parked legally, and sleep there and then come back up during the day. It gets a bit tedious, but if you're worried about getting a fine, that's pretty much the only way to do it outside of staying in a caravan park. That's also why knowing your rights ahead of time is important. So in Queensland, where it's strictly prohibited, once you know that, you can make the adjustments with your life, such as heading down to the Northern Rivers area, staying there for the night and then coming back up. And it just allows you to sort of work around the law, but also within the law, if that makes sense. I hope it does. Ultimately, wherever you end up, just make sure that you check on the local council's website. Laws and regulations can change over time, so that's why it's always important to keep up to date with the local council's official website, their official sources, to find that information. Don't just rely on my words here. Another thing you need to understand is that cops will never actually fine you. If they are called, they can come and move you on, and usually that happens if somebody's phoned them up to complain that they've noticed something unusual, perhaps out the front of their place or out the front of their business. We did once encounter a problem with the police down in Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. Somebody had reported us. The police came around and just knocked on our window and asked us to leave. We asked them where would they like us to go. At that time, it was after 5 p.m, no caravan parks open, everyone had closed down, and they just said, we don't care. So in that case, we just went to the next suburb, we found a park and we slept there for the night instead. Just a minor inconvenience, kind of sucks, but that's just how it is sometimes in Australia. It's only if you're parked on private property without the owner's permission that the cops can help the owner charge you with trespassing or something of that nature. Maybe don't stay on somebody's land without their permission. If the police do come along and they give you a random breath test and you blow anything above the legal limit for alcohol consumption, they can actually issue you with a drink driving fine. That happened to me personally about 20 years ago. I'd been out drinking with my friends. I came back, and rather than drink driving and driving my car home, I slept in the back seat and I put the keys on the ground and I fell asleep, and a couple of hours later I woke to some banging on the window, and there was the police, and they gave me a breath test and I blew above the limit. What ended up eventuating from that was that I lost my license for 12 months and I was issued a $1,000 fine for sleeping in the back seat of my parked car with the keys on the ground. So it's like sleeping in the back of this van here, nowhere near the driver's seat. It still classes as drink driving if you're doing it in a public area. If you're in a designated campground, that's not the case. You're allowed to consume alcohol there, and that's okay. Depends on where you are. If you're doing a road trip, to lose your license like that would really suck. So just try and avoid that if you can. If you're drinking, stay somewhere else. If you are going to be visiting a city, we've only got 3 options where you are legally allowed to sleep. And those are in caravan parks, in rooming accommodation, or stealth camping. Caravan parks are usually pretty rare to find in cities, but if you do find one, you can expect to pay about $350 per week for a powered site, and that's during the off-peak season. If you're staying during peak seasons, the general rule is that the prices double, and that pretty much happens across the country. There are 4 school holidays sessions per year. That happens at the turn of each season, and there's also a bunch of public holidays that you need to watch out for, such as Australia Day and the King's birthday. The second option for staying or sleeping in a city is rooming accommodation. It's even more expensive than staying in a caravan park, so if you're a millionaire, it's probably not such a big deal. This option really just depends on your budget and what you can afford. So as long as you park your rig somewhere nearby where you can legally park that, then that's okay. Most city accommodations have height restrictions on their car parks, anywhere from 1.8 up to 2.3 meters. So parking on site really isn't an option in a lot of places in most cities. If you're more like us, maybe you'd want to try free camping or stealth camping, and here's a couple of things to help you out. Before you get to the city, what I would recommend is to do some location scouting, and that's basically done by using Google Maps. Go into the street view, have a look around, make sure there's no driveways, you're not on the front of somebody's property, there's no like windows or doorways where people might see you getting in and out of your car, and also to make sure that the street is flat. Nothing worse than rocking up somewhere where you think might look suitable just based on a top-down view, only to realise the street's on a 45-degree angle or something ridiculous. And then just pin and save a couple of places for later. In addition to that, just drive around when you are actually at the city. If you see somewhere during the day that looks like it might be suitable, pin it on your maps, come back after dark and just sit in your car for a little bit and sort of gauge the vibe of the area. After dark, the area can look a bit different to how it looks during the day. So just pin a few places, and then if one's not suitable, move on to the next one. And you can cycle a few different places and stay in a city for quite a long time if you've got a few really good places that you've found by doing this. There's a lot of places where you can get away with sleeping overnight in your van, but don't make it obvious that you're staying in your van, because even though it might be perfectly legal to do in the state that you're in, if a neighbour notices something strange out the front of their property, they might be tempted to call the cops. It doesn't happen all the time. It can, and it probably will happen eventually if you're in a van for long enough, so that's just something to be aware of. Ultimately, this leads us to our favourite place, and the one that we recommend for sleeping in your car or van legally in Australia. The best places really are in the national parks or the reserves all around the country. Not all national parks have campgrounds, but a lot of them do, and they've got amenities and things to do and wildlife and no people, and it's great. That's the number one place that I recommend sleeping legally in your car or van in Australia. There is a nightly fee involved at most of them. That's paid to the National Park State Authority, wherever you are, whatever state you're in. To book a site in a national park, you just jump on Google and type New South Wales National Parks, or Queensland National Parks, or Victoria Parks, or Tasmania Parks and Wildlife, and on their websites you'll be able to navigate to which national parks have campgrounds. The Australian National Parks Authority websites are a little bit clunky sometimes, so if it's your first time using it, just take your time, but once you've done it a few times, you just get used to it and it's okay after that. In some states, like in New South Wales or in Jervis Bay or Tasmania, you'll also have to buy the state's National Parks Pass. Those come on either a nightly basis, 3-month, annually, or biannual basis, depending on the state. The cost to stay at a national park campground is way cheaper than staying in a caravan park or a private campground. In some cases, it's like 10 times cheaper. It's really, really good. And some of them even have showers. Some of them have flushing toilets, and they've got plenty of Australian wildlife that you can see and keep you company, like spiders and snakes and kangaroos and goannas. All sorts of things. There's everything that you need to know about how to sleep legally in your car or van in Australia. There's a great website that I've actually linked below for you to check. They keep it up to date yearly, and that can help you better understand your rights and the legalities of sleeping in your car in Australia. And as I mentioned earlier, the laws and regulations can change over time, so remember to check the latest information from official sources before you depart on your next road trip, just so you know your rights ahead of time. It's the most important thing. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, watching our content all the way through to the end is the best way to support the channel, so I really appreciate that. If you like this sort of content, please leave a like. That'll help the algorithm so I can help more people with this information. If you have any questions about van life, anything you would like us to make a video about, we've been doing this life for the last 6 years, so we know quite a bit about it. Just leave a comment below and I'll either answer you directly in the comments or I'll make a video. And look, if you enjoy this sort of content, why not subscribe? It's free to do that as well. We share van life travel tips. We make meals in our tiny kitchen right here, which is where I'm sitting. Thank you guys for watching again. Take it easy and see ya.